Well, here I am again, Jeffrey Davis, CEO of Mage LLC, management consulting firm in the Boston area, and also still the host of Radio Entrepreneurs. And I'm sitting in my podcast studio and always looking forward to new people that I get to meet. And read a little bit about our next guest. I think she's going to be very interesting. Sara Fraim, CEO MTLC. Hi, Sara. How are you?
Good, Jeffrey. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Sara. Yeah, I read a lot about you. Oh, I don't know if it was a lot, but for me, it probably was. And you have a very interesting background. Do you mind sharing it with some of our listeners as they get to know you as well?
Sure. I'm sure it wasn't a lot. Um, it's funny. Now that I'm where I feel as though my background it's actually much more of a linear background than I felt as I got here. I am born and raised here in this region. I did both my undergraduate and graduate degrees here in this region. Um, you can hear it, maybe not right now, but if I'm a little tired, my Boston accent comes out very, very strong. Um, but I'm a huge champion of Massachusetts. I thought I would always be in policy somehow. But again, my degrees were in political science and public affairs, and my dream was to work either at the Massachusetts State House or on Capitol Hill for a Massachusetts politician. And I did both of those very, very briefly, realized that is not what I am most interested in. And then I found my way into industry associations. And that's really where I had my first real job that I absolutely loved and spent a few years doing that. Went into the private sector for a couple of years, feeling that maybe I could go and earn a lot more money somewhere, realized it wasn't what I loved. And then went back to industry associations and where I've spent most of my career. And I've done everything from membership management to events, logistics, to running event strategy and policy and working my way up into CEO where I am now.
Well, I hope this isn't a big leap if I said you must be a values-driven person when it comes to your corporate or your professional mission. Is that correct?
Yes, I think so. I think it's values. I think it's impact. I like to be in organizations that I feel make big impact. And I think the nonprofit, especially in the industry association world, that is a place where we can have that.
That's an encouraging thing to hear. So why don't you talk about the current organizations you're involved with and what kind of impact you're making or they're making?
Yes, so MTLC stands for the Massachusetts Technology Leadership Council.
Right.
We've been around for over 30 years. We were originally the Mass Software Council, and then after a few different mergers, we rebranded. It's probably almost 20 years, not 15 years, about 15 years into the Mass Tech Leadership Council. I've been with the association for about 12 and a half years. I've been CEO for just over a year. And the mission of MTLC is to foster the growth of an inclusive tech ecosystem. And that sounds, I don't know, maybe it sounds a little hokey, maybe it doesn't sound so values driven, but it truly is, because the technology sector is what fuels the Massachusetts economy. There is no biotech without tech. There is no ed tech without tech. There is no healthcare tech without tech, or fintech. All of these large industries, healthcare, financial services, biotech, they're all underpinned by technology. And if you think about the coffee shops and the and the diners and all the restaurants and the shops, those are patroned by people, that work here. And so much of that is technology centric. And so it does, in fact, fuel this economy. And it also pays about twice the state average. So getting a job in technology is life-changing for many people. It's putting them on a path of growth that is not something that could happen otherwise in some instances. And so fostering the growth of an inclusive tech ecosystem actually it's critical to having a robust economy and having economic equality.
I hope this is a good question. I've been living in Boston since 1981, the Boston area, Massachusetts. And I lived in 5 cities prior, and I've moved around the country. I've spoken around the country. I speak internationally. I'm glad you brought up the tech ecosystem in Massachusetts. It doesn't seem to be something that others always, one, appreciate, or two, can replicate. And it's interesting. I don't understand why they don't try to imitate and replicate. And what makes it so special? It has to be a lot of things that just happened, that coincided, that just made it so that Massachusetts was the ideal place for all this to happen. And I've been amazed over my career watching the robust life of that ecosystem continue.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of factors. I would start by saying the education system here is really strong. It's both in the K through 12 for sure, but we also have 100 plus colleges, universities, and community colleges here in Massachusetts. Many of them in a very close proximity to one another, and quite frankly, we do educate much of the world here. That's a foundation that is just not replicated anyplace else. And then adding to that is both our size. So we're small compared to, a lot of other cities, both in the United States and in the world. And so having that small area allows for what we've always called it's sort of an organic bump factor. It's really hard not to bump into somebody. And those connections that you make along the way really help define and create the density that's needed to have a robust ecosystem. And I've been using that word a lot lately, is density. It's as I start to think about the implications of a more distributed workplace, and are people migrating out of Massachusetts, and are they able to work from anywhere, even if they're still working for companies that may have either headquartered here or large presence here. But I think in the end, what's going to move that pendulum back from everything virtual to hybrid to being back more in person is, as humans, we crave interaction. And as economic clusters, we need density. And for anybody that is really looking to innovate or to grow or to lead, you do need to be in those regions that have those populations. And so I do think that we're starting to see that there's an energy, and I hate to say there's a lot more traffic, but there's more people out and about. And I think that is going to create, as you start to do something more, that becomes more of muscle, and it helps. So that's a big piece of why I think Boston is what it is, and Massachusetts really. And I would also just add one other thing, is proximity to other locations. So you can be on the West Coast as fast as you can be in Europe. There's direct flights to Israel. We're in a great time zone that really is friendly to other time zones. That helps in business.
I think that's really true. And California is a long way from Europe. We're an easy hop to Europe. But I think just two things to show you I am listening, and I really enjoy listening to you. In terms of the density, when you get through the density, there's a lot of complexity to it. And I like complexity. I think complexity adds character. And the other thing, and I think you really triggered me when you were talking, when you mentioned that a lot of the world comes to Boston to go to school. And when I try to explain to some of my friends from other cities that come from cities with a lot of schools, I say, I think the thing that I've always found interesting about Boston is it's almost like the best of the best want to come to school in Boston. And then the best of those want to stay when they graduate. And so there's a constant elevation of the quality and a competitiveness that keeps it vibrant and different than others. So I really think you've touched upon a lot of things. I know we're going to have a lot of discussions and learn more about Mass TLC over the year. And we really appreciate that at Radio Entrepreneurs. And I just want to say, Sara, I appreciate this conversation and future conversations. If somebody's looking for you and Mass TLC, how would they find you?
Excuse me. Yeah, they can find us on our website. It's just very easy. It's mtlc.co. And if they want to reach me directly, they can email me. Just as easy. It's Sara@mtlc.co.
Well, I want to thank you for being on Radio Entrepreneurs today. Remind our listeners, you're going to be getting a lot of Mass TLC this year, and I hope you enjoy it. This is Radio Entrepreneurs.